Good morning, Sense of Things. It's Jeff and Ron here once again. We are in the midst of earnings season, all kinds of craziness going on, some good news, some bad news, and a lot of economic data coming into the beginning of the year. Ron, how you doing, bud?
Good morning, doing well. Yep, there's never a dull moment with market news, economic news. We got corporate news with earnings and everything. Yeah, a lot to sift through today.
We'll have lots to talk about for the next several weeks here with earnings season going. And
that is for sure. Yeah.
Lots of craziness going on. What I thought I would do is kick us off today. I was telling Ron before we got started that I was trying to get Google or ChatGPT to tell me who was more inaccurate, economists, stock analysts, or weathermen. And all I kept getting was these politically correct answers that, well, they all have a hard job and it's difficult and all this. It sounded like listening to a presidential press conference. So I gave up and I just asked ChatGPT one simple question. Give me the top 5 jokes about economists.
Love it.
So we're going to start off with that. So give me just a second to bring it up. Ron, can you see that?
I can.
All right. So let's put this in slideshow format so you can see it. All righty. Number 5, why did God create economists? To make weather forecasters look good.
Love it. Love it.
Number 4.
That leads right into my thing for many years. Gotcha.
Number 4, an economist is someone who, when he finds something that works in practice, wonders if it works in theory.
Of course. Backtesting, baby. Backtesting.
There we go. Number 3, how can you tell an economist has a sense of humor? It's when he uses a decimal point.
Of course, because he's got to round up or round down.
Absolutely. Nice. And now, probably my favorite of the whole group, 3 economists go hunting and spot a deer. The first economist shoots and misses by a meter to the left. The second economist shoots and misses by a meter to the right. The third economist doesn't shoot and says, "We got it."
It's in the same zip or area code. We're good.
You got it. And the last one, number 1, what's the difference between an economist and a confused old man with Alzheimer's? The economist is the one with the calculator.
I think I got to post those to my website. You got to throw those up on LinkedIn. I'll repost it and like it.
Absolutely. We will definitely do that because
we should have done this one a long time ago.
I know. It came up and I was like,
great idea. Great idea.
Let's just do this. And it's so true. Every single one of them. But number 2, possibly my absolute favorite at this point, just because of what we see so many times in those ranges of you could drive a truck through them. So they're
all working with the same data. They all have absolutely the same data.
No different data at all. It's just the interpretation is, okay, we could basically drive. We think we're going to go through the middle of the country and we'll put the outer boundary at California and the other boundary at New York. And we should be somewhere in the middle of there when we're driving through.
Unbelievable.
I wanted to get us kicked off. Just literally, I was just popping off. This is hot off the presses. The fourth quarter GDP, still the economy growing above potential. And this is the part of my reason for this whole kind of rag on economists a little bit is there's still, I think, like an 80% expectation in the market and economists that the Fed is going to cut rates in May of this year.
Real quick, I didn't bring the slide up. I was going to. A month ago, there was a 70% chance of a rate cut in March. It's now under 50.
Yeah. But
we were laughing at March.
What? Yeah. They're talking about March. We're still at a 3.3% growth rate for our economy. They are not going to cut rates anytime soon. Unless something goes completely kaflooey at this point, there is not a chance in hell of them cutting rates anytime soon.
Look, we've been saying second half of this year, a year ago.
And I don't even think, I honestly, at this point, I couldn't see it happening before the election. It's not coming down. It just keeps going up at this point. And it's so far out of their targets. And that last 1.3% to get it down to 2% is it's like losing that last 10 pounds. You can lose the first 10 pretty fast. Losing that last 10 pounds is pretty damn hard.
And I don't think they're going to go down to 2%. I think we're in a different world today. I think if we hit 3, I think that may be the acceptable level, plus or minus, who knows?
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that they're going to cut rates anytime soon, because it, unless the economy's slowing down. And, when you get into the numbers a little bit, and I know I'd been using Econoday in the past. I actually started using briefing.com because they do a really good job of breaking the stuff down. The largest driver of that 3.3% is personal consumption expenditures, which increased 2.8%, just a little under the previous 3.1%. And that alone contributed 1.91 percentage points to that 3.3%. So well over 2/3 are just personal consumption. Another thing that went up pretty significantly again, although not as much as it had been, government spending, 3.3% versus 5.8 in the third quarter. And that contributed to 0.56% of this whole thing. So between those two, that's the majority of what's causing this. And although government spending went down a little bit, it's still wildly high.
Also, I heard 3 different economists in 3 separate interviews talking about, if you take a look at the employment number, a healthy percentage is government jobs, not in the business community. A healthy percentage of the new jobs created are in government. And I had thought that they were this 3 for 1. For every 3 people that leave the government sector, they could only hire 1 back. They were doing a contraction over the last decade. So why all of a sudden are all these people getting jobs in the government?
Yeah. And it just keeps growing and growing and growing. And I don't see it slowing down anytime soon. Or you haven't heard about any government layoffs. You're hearing about other layoffs.
Right. Yeah, I've just been talking to some clients, and one of them is expecting a layoff and another one just got laid off. I'm trying to dig into their industries a little bit to see if there's some contagion there. We'll have to find out what's going on.
Yeah. So what I wanted to finish up my part today was a little bit of a rundown. I heard an economist an analyst that I really respect, Stephanie Palmboy, of my Macro Mavens. She is on it. I've listened to her for years. She's regularly on CNBC and Fox Business, and she just always makes a hell of a lot of sense. And she brought up a really interesting point that made me go and do some quick research today between the difference of GDP, which we just got this number, and one that I really didn't follow very much. I will be keeping an eye on now, which is GDI, gross domestic income.
Yep.
I wanted to really share what the difference between those are. What does it mean?
Good idea.
GDP is the total monetary market value of all the finished goods and services produced within a country's borders in a specific period of time. So it's just the finished goods and services. It's not anything else. When you look at GDI, it's interesting. Gross domestic income is a measure of economic activity based on all the income earned while engaged in the said economic activity. So one, we have finished goods and services. This is more about the income side. And when I went in, I pulled up a chart that I thought was very interesting. Now, this is through Q2, so we hadn't gotten Q3, or I haven't found one that showed Q3 yet, although I do know that GDP was up. Once again, it was up closer to almost 4%.
Yep.
And GDI was in the negative, I know. So I'm going to have to go find a chart that updates this a little bit more. And specifically when we look at it for Q4, when we get the fourth quarter GDI versus the GDP. One of the most interesting things about this, and I hadn't really followed this before, and this is where Stephanie made a point of it, this spread now between where GDP is today and where GDI is the highest percentage ever in history, except for, I think it goes all the way back to 1993 when we've seen anything this wide, which we were in a pretty ugly recession in 1993.
But what does that mean, though? What I'm asking is the spread between the two indicators. What is that showing?
I think what it indicates, or what I infer from this, is if you're looking at gross domestic income, that is declining. So that means that the income coming in on the front end of some of this stuff is declining pretty rapidly. Now, goods and services produced are increasing, and it's been largely supported, especially in this period from about here, Q2 2022 to now, has been largely supported by government spending, and a lot of it, a massive amount of government spending. But this cannot really be manipulated by government spending. It's more from the position of the corporations and the businesses that are out there. So it may be this time, it's not a widely followed indicator, but it may actually be a little bit more of a canary in the coal mine. And I think it's going to roll into when we start to look at leading economic indicators. In your part, GDP is one of the factors that tells us if we're in a recession or not. Right, but I think what we're seeing, from my personal opinion, is really starting in Q1 of last year, we started to see this be pretty much in the negative and continue to be in the negative on the GDI side. And that may just be showing, hey, we're starting to slow down on the top end. And if any indicator from me being I'm also in the co-working business, and I'm seeing it from the small business perspective, we've seen a big slowdown in the number of people coming in to look at space in our spaces. We've had people say, hey, I can't afford to stay here anymore. I think it's starting to affect especially the lower end of the market, and it may start working its way up into the mid and small size, the small to mid-size companies. The big companies, I think they're still going to keep chugging along, but I think the majority of corporations are going to start to see that continued slowdown. It would be my read on this.
We'll see how I understand what both of them are, and I have followed more of the GDP than the GDI over the years. But when you get that kind of a spread, what is that? I'm trying to figure out, what's the interpretation? What does that mean? Okay, so we're producing more.
Yep.
But overall wages are going down. Overall income, household income, people's income are going down. Yeah. So how are we producing more? Meaning is, and we all know where credit card balances are. So are people just putting it on credit card balances and spending beyond our means, which we all know, but that's what I'm trying to figure out, what this spread actually means.
Yeah. And I think, the other side of it too, is we were talking about before, and I don't think I really hit on it when I was up here in the GDP report. One of the things that stuck out to me was this thing right here. Personal savings rate, disposable personal income was 4% versus 4.2%.
So that's near an all-time low.
Yeah, and it's continuing to drop. And I think if you're to infer this part and say, okay, GDI is decreasing, so that means that income is decreasing. And this is a measure of both personal income as well as business income. If that's decreasing, and then you start to see, okay, credit card rates rising, or credit card usage rising, personal savings dropping, that's telling me that the consumer they're not making as much in relation to what they should be. And they're just continuing to spend for some crazy reason. And they're just going to do it via credit and eating up of their savings and everything else.
And I believe a year ago, the savings rate was just over 5%.
Yeah.
So it's going down to 4%, and 1% in savings rate. It's big money across the board.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, eventually people are going to start running out of money. And I've heard, I heard one of the presenters on the news this morning talking about, he was standing in line at a like a pharmacy or whatever, waiting for his prescription. He heard a lady in front of him, and he was saying the person's, okay, for your medication, it's $400 or something like that. And she's, oh my God, I can't spend that money. I can't could I get 5 pills or something like that? And the person's like, yeah, you can get 5, and that'll be $85 at this point. And he goes, I was going to pay it for
at that point because I felt she needed some help. And she
it's only life-saving medication. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah. And is it what I guess what he was saying? He's like, because I heard way more than I wanted to, but he said she goes, I've been taking these and cutting them into like quarters and all this. And the person behind the counter is like, you're supposed to take 2 of these a day. It's just, it's getting to the point. I think people are getting stretched, and I just don't know where the breaking point is. I know there is a breaking point out there. I just don't know where it is at this point. And unless we reverse, I think, some of this income issue, eventually it's going to get caught. Somebody's going to get caught, and it's going to reverse the other direction.
Yeah.
But I don't see the Fed changing their rates anytime soon.
No, not at the pace that we've been going.
No. All right. What do we got?
All right. Okay. All right. So we're going to start out with LEI. We go through this every month, everybody. And essentially what we're seeing here is the 21st consecutive month of negative aggregate data and 22 out of the last 24 months. Now, a lot of people that have followed this over the years say the LEI is broken. Any indicator can be broken, but there's very few indicators out there that combine so many important economic factors into one indicator to put it together. So I know we've talked about it for a long time. A couple of good economists that I follow, and I listen to their podcast or media interviews every now and then. And a lot of them are saying, yeah, the LEI definitely is a good indicator, but a better indicator combined with the LEI is when the Fed starts to increase rates.
Mm-hmm.
When they start to increase rates, the probability of the LEI being correct goes up exponentially.
Okay.
So again, does that depend on whether or not we're still going to stay into the negative, below the negative? I don't know. But I thought it was interesting. And then I know you like to do a deeper dive on the LEI stuff. So I could let you talk about some of this, but I just find it interesting. If you just take a look, compared to last month over month, we contracted significantly to negative 2.9. We could analyze each one of these ad nauseum, but I just find it's interesting that if you go down here, forget about the stock prices, everything else is just either trending down or getting worse, especially the non-financial components. What do you say?
Yeah, it's the same thing. It's been the same thing. It's interesting. Average, yeah. So a few things have gone back to the positive, specifically the manufacturing, those manufacturing sectors down there. Those had been negative. They're zero, but they had been negative. So that's an interesting piece to me when I look at this. Everything else is basically on that same track. And the only thing that is that's buoyed the financial components up has been the S&P. Yep. And that's been all of last year. Everything else on the financial side has been in the negative, and it's just been the S&P. So if we were to get any kind of an extended market contraction, it's going to take the LEI off the charts down, and they're already off the charts down, but it's going to take the charts down even farther at that point if we see any kind of a negative trend on the S&P at all.
The interesting thing is, I think it was either last podcast or the podcast before, we had reviewed the shocking decrease in the Empire, the New York manufacturing, the PMI, the Philadelphia manufacturing number. It's near a multi-decade low.
Yeah.
After 3-4 months ago, it had spiked up significantly. I don't know, especially in manufacturing where things move at a snail's pace. I don't know how we can have that kind of a move to the upside and or a move to the downside in such a whipsaw swing.
I think the biggest thing that I've dug into, and I've been pounding the table on this all along, the problem with those PMI, those indexes, the manufacturing indexes, they're not really based factually on we're decreasing. It's basically just a survey that they do of the manufacturers.
Right.
And I think with all the whipsaw that we've seen of just all over the fence,
these guys sometimes go, hey, everything's great and wonderful and the world's wonderful, and then all of a sudden the world is horrible again. So I don't know how much of a actual factual data effect it has, or how much of a psychological data it has of those people that are running manufacturing firms at this point.
And again, here's the other thing. We've talked about this just even with economists. They're all working with the same data.
Yep.
So unless you turn off unless there was an event, a crisis or a catalyst event to help slow down or shut off the spigot of manufacturing, I don't know how there could be such whipsaw movement in those numbers. But nothing else really stood out to me here, because we've seen, especially with the interest rate spread, the 10-year bond minus the Fed rate, that went down significantly. But again, we saw what happened in the last 2 months of the year. So some of these numbers could be reacting to what we saw in the stock market. We'll have to see how next month goes, because this is obviously a lot of holiday numbers included.
Yeah, and we had a massive spike up in the S&P 500 during this last quarter. I've been doing client reviews this last couple weeks, and just looking at last year, we were having a okay year up until Q4, and then all of a sudden it was like off the charts for client returns last year, and we had a fantastic return. A lot of my clients are a little bit more conservative, and we're booking double-digit numbers on a conservative portfolio. That doesn't happen very often.
It's not how you start the year, it's how you finish.
That's exactly right. And we finished strong. So I'm like, hey, we're good finishers. We may not start. We were a little too conservative, I think, at the beginning of the year, just because if you ask me once again, I don't think my answer would have changed if you'd asked me in January of last year, were we going to have a recession? I still would tell you we should have had a recession.
I agree.
Last year, it just, everything that I look at told me that it was going to be a recession. The second half of the year, I just gave into what we're just going to ride the momentum and keep going. And I think that for my clients, they were pleased that we just let it ride. But I don't know when this changes. I can just tell you it is going to change, and we're just going to continue to ride the wave as long as we can, and then be nimble and adjust when we have to. But
look, I think we're going to step in a couple of potholes between now and the presidential election. Maybe one or two will be the size of a swimming pool for those size of those potholes. I don't know, but we'll have to see. All right. And then my last slide, people remember our other podcast. Jeff and I gave you our predictions for the year, ranges for the S&P. We're amateurs. So if we want to look at these so-called experts, they're like politicians. They're lying when their lips are moving. This is where they stand with theirs. And I find it very interesting. If you take a look at the far end of the scale, you got JP Morgan, First Trust. First Trust is always pretty positive, right? Usually they're pumping the bull pump, but not now. Morgan Stanley, we know who that's, Mike Wilson, Wells Fargo. The interesting thing is, JP Morgan is looking at almost a 12% contraction in the market. Not to say that's unheard of. I could only see that happening if there's some type of a potential geopolitical event. I don't know. Because I think, we're going to be up and down. We'll be down towards the presidential election. We talked about this. We'll be up probably following the presidential election. But unless there's a major economic event or a geopolitical event, I see us being positive for the year, not 20%, obviously, but this is pretty amazing. If you take, these are all the big players in the industry, and half of them are looking at flat to negative for the year. Thoughts? What are your thoughts?
I'm just thinking of my predictions. I'm like, Jesus, I've never been so Pollyanna of all. I think my kind of average scenario came in at even higher than the guys on the left-hand side of this thing, which is amazing. I honestly, I think we're still going to have a decent year this year. And I beg to differ. And I don't know where they're getting this First Trust number, quite frankly, because I watched First Trust all the time, and they're still predicting good. So I don't know where they came up with this number, but interesting. And this is off of a First Trust slide, which is interesting.
Yes. I actually was at one of their events last night with one of their economists. And for whatever reason, and they got some great economists there.
Yeah, they do.
And they've all been there for a long time. I don't know if they're drinking out of the same glass, but they all feel pretty much the same way. And it's tough to see that with a group of economists feeling negative on their sentiment. I have a feeling it's more politically motivated.
Yeah.
That's my opinion, but we'll have to see. But I thought that this was interesting because you see some of these numbers on TV, but now you see everything.
Yeah, it's
and
nice to see it
it's
across
almost
the
split
board.
down the center,
Yeah.
flat to negative.
So the guys on the left, and then everybody at the end will just say, hey, we got it. Our joke number 2 just fits perfectly into this with the strategist projections as well.
And Oppenheimer and BMO, they're always going to say it's going to be an up year because they're going to be right 80% of the time, right?
Yeah.
It's like saying every day it's going to rain, and eventually it does.
Keep saying the market's going to be up every year, and you're going to be right more than that, and you're pretty much.
And you know who Fundstrat is? He's a perennial bull.
Yep.
He's always going to say it's not up there. So those 3 don't surprise me that they're on that end and they're the highest. And they've been right in the last couple of years. They've been pumping it up.
Yeah.
But also, I always said this about analysts. I say this about market strategists. Do they have their own skin in the game? And if they don't, I'm a little leery about what they're doing because they're getting compensated. They're getting compensated if people keep the money in their banks and if people put money into their funds. So is there really that wall that you're not supposed to? I don't believe that at all. I'm a conspiracy theorist anyway. That's why if you've been in the business as long as we have, there are some key people that you listen to. Even if it's like an echo chamber, these people have the track record. Right.
Yeah.
So if you've got somebody that's been a perennial bull for the last 20 to 30 years, and you rarely ever hear them come out and be negative and really look at the facts, I don't want to listen to that. I want to hear both sides of the coin, but I want to hear both sides of the coin where people can truly look into through their lens and give an honest opinion without somebody whispering in their ear to say, you got to be a bull. You got to be a bull.
Yeah.
Doesn't work for me.
I think that's the reality of it is that's more than anything. I saw this when I worked for Fidelity. I saw this when I worked for Schwab. And there is that institutional, this is what we as an institution believe. And whether you're the outlier or not, this is what we believe as an organization. And you better believe that. And I know from a Fidelity perspective, they got caught with their shorts down during that period from 2000 to 2003, where it was just like this group think. And then literally you had 30 different funds that all had basically the top 10 holdings be the exact same thing in those cases. It's interesting. Like I said, it's interesting for me to see First Trust, which is perennially pretty much a bull. And I've followed them for years. I've been to their events. I respect their opinion. I respectfully disagree with them this year. Maybe I'll be wrong, but once again, I'm not going to fight the market at all. I'm going to ride the wave as long as we can. We'll adjust if we need to. I have never been the random walk down Wall Street, just fiddle while Rome is burning around you.
Set it and forget it.
Yeah. That's just not my style and whatever. But I just personally, I don't buy it for this year. I think we're going to have a decent year. It's looking like we're going to have a battle of the octogenarians for the presidential race, good or bad, whatever your feeling is on that. Pick your favorite octogenarian and go with it at this point, because there's not going to be any other option. So who knows what happens? I just don't know. But like I said, I just personally believe, we're probably going to see some contraction this year. I just don't know if it's going to be that big of a deal, quite frankly.
There has to be a catalyst, and it's got to be a credit event. I don't know what that is, or it starts with manufacturers, maybe the big ones, laying off. We'll have to see. But we're going to revisit this slide, I think, once a quarter.
I like
because, of course, they always make revisions. I don't give a crap about your revisions.
Yeah.
Where were you in the beginning of the year?
What did you say the beginning of the year was going to be? Yeah. I would really like to take a look at the professionals versus us at the end of the year and see where we all laid it out at that point.
Definitely.
So, excellent stuff this week. I thought great discussion. Looking forward to, I think we'll probably do a little bit of an earnings update next week of kind of some of the big top end earnings and their effects on the market and all that. The Netflix number was just off the charts the other day. It was just amazing to me that they can continue to add subscribers like they're adding at this point.
Yep. And just as a little tease, let's talk about a portfolio strategy for those in a growth mode that want to take maybe potentially advantage of. You're scared crapless about this year, but you want to take advantage of the upside. We're going to cover what's called a trailing stop.
Nice.
And I think this may be a good thing because I've been talking about it with some people that have been in the markets for years and are not familiar with it. But if you want to try and squeeze the juice out of the orange before the fall, that may be a strategy for you.
Yeah. And I think more than anything, it's also a discipline that you have. And that's something we regularly do with our clients across the board, because things can move fast. And if you're not watching, they can move fast on you. I have one option position that I was looking at, and it's a great stock, and it has moved 50% in 1 week, just back and forth 50%. I looked Monday and it was up 96%. I looked yesterday and it was up only 46%. Just amazing how much movement is going on in the market right now.
A lot of volatility. It's only going to increase.
Absolutely. Thanks. Folks, thank you for joining us. We do these for you. So please, if you haven't, make sure you subscribe to the channel, share this with somebody, and give us a comment. We love it. I've been having some great discussions with people on YouTube of some questions that were asked, and they're just fantastic discussion to have. So I encourage you, if you've got a question or if you've got a comment, make sure you drop that into the comment section. We do respond to every single one of them. So thanks a lot. We will see you guys here the very next time.